All right, it's recording. Hi, everyone. So let's do this. No more breaks. Chapter 6, Talking to Dragons. This is also for Blue. Thank you, Blue. Oh God, I should have read that. In which Daystar makes a mistake. Dinner was a stew that smelled and tasted awfully good, though it didn't look like much. Morwen had made a large pot of the stuff. Half of it she put in a big pan and set on the floor for the cats, and the rest we ate. By the time we'd finished, we decided to spend the night with Morwen and the cats. I was a little worried, at first, about what to do with the sword of the sleeping king. I didn't want to leave it leaning up against Morwen's wall all night. Finally, I decided to keep it with me. It wasn't that I didn't trust Morwen, but Mother had given the sword to me and it was my responsibility. Once it was settled, I started wondering where Shiara and I were going to sleep. I shouldn't have worried. Morwen had several extra bedrooms behind her magic door, and she simply put each of us in one of them. By that time, I was starting to wonder how many rooms she had in her house, and why she kept them all when they weren't needed. That isn't the sort of question you ask people in the Enchanted Forest, though, so I didn't. Besides, I was tired again. As soon as Morwen showed me to my room, I stuck the sword under the bed and went to sleep. I was pretty sure the sword would be safe there. I was right, too. When I woke up in the morning, a cat was asleep on top of it. What if it's warm? My cats used to sleep on my computer sometimes. After breakfast, Morwen took the bandages off my hand. The burns were gone and it felt fine, but she examined it carefully anyway. When she was finished with my hand, she helped me get my sword belt on. The sheath was dry, so I put the sword back in it. While I was doing that, Morwen produced a couple of bundles and a small black kitten with one white paw. She gave Shiara the kitten and one bundle and turned to me. "This is for you," she said, handing me the other bundle. "It should make your travels a little easier. Now, come outside." She opened the front door and went out onto the porch. I lost my place. I let Shiara leave next and started to follow her, but one of the cats started in front of me and I nearly tripped. I had to grab the door frame to keep my balance. "Watch out," Shiara said, then, "Daystar, what's the matter?" I almost didn't hear her. I was staring down at my sword. My hand had brushed it when I tripped and I'd felt the tingling again. Only this time there was even more of it. I reached over and took the hilt of my right hand. The rumbling tingle hadn't changed, but the buzzing tingle and purring tingle were considerably stronger than they had been. And they'd been joined by a brisk vibration I hadn't felt before. I concentrated on the new feeling, trying to figure out where it had come from, and found myself looking at Morwen. I looked back at the sword. I hadn't let go, and my arm was still tingling. I tried to pick out one of the other vibrations. Suddenly, I was feeling mostly the purring tingle and looking out into the woods. I blinked and tried again. This time I got the buzz, and I was staring at Shiara. Suddenly I understood. "It's magic," I said. "Of course it's magic," Shiara said. "Honestly, Daystar." "No, I mean, that's what it does," I said. "The sword of the sleeping king finds magic." "Among other things," Morwen said, in a satisfied voice. "Finds magic?" Shiara said skeptically. "That's what the tingling is," I said. I was completely sure of myself, though I didn't know why. Different tingles mean different kinds of magic, and the tingles get stronger when the sword gets closer to the magic. I looked at Shiara. No wonder it gave me such a jolt when we both touched it at the same time. Oh, because she's a different source of magic. Duh. It's actually really cool, though, because he has to learn how to use the sword by himself. Right? Yeah. Shiara had been reaching for the hilt, but she pulled her hand back hastily. "The sword finds magic. How come I couldn't feel anything until you touched it? And if the tingles are the way it finds things, why can't you feel them all the time?" "I don't know," I said. The tingling was fading again, but the same way it had when I held onto the sword before, so I let go of the hilt. Morwen considered me through her glasses. I couldn't tell what she was thinking from her expression. Finally, she nodded very slightly. "I see. There's considerably more to you than I had expected, Daystar," she said in a thoughtful tone. I was still trying to figure out what that statement meant when Morwen turned away and said briskly, "However, it is time for you to be going. You see those two trees? Walk straight between them and keep on until you get to a stream, then follow the stream northward. You'll get to something eventually and you should be able to figure out what to do from there." So Morwen can't really tell him what's going on. For reasons I don't quite understand. My eyes turned in the direction Morwen was pointing. It was the same way I'd been looking when I'd been concentrating on the purring tingle from the sword. I looked back at Morwen. "Exactly," Morwen said. "What?" said Shiara. "Let's go," I said. I was feeling a little unsettled by the whole thing, and I didn't want to talk about it anymore. Shiara scowled, but she didn't insist on an explanation. We said goodbye and thank you to Morwen and started walking toward the trees. Shiara carried the kitten for a while, but pretty soon the kitten decided it wanted to walk. We slowed down a lot after that, until the kitten got tired enough to let Shiara pick it up again without scratching her. Shiara and I spent most of the walk talking. I hadn't realized how little she knew about the Enchanted Forest, and I wound up telling her a lot of things. Like about being polite to people, why you shouldn't promise things without knowing what they are first. Morton hadn't told us how far away from the stream how far away the stream was, and eventually I started wondering how much longer it would take us to find it. I was also curious about where we were going. Right about then, I noticed that the trees we were walking past were larger than the ones I'd seen the previous day. At least I thought they were larger. Hold on, where am I? Oh, 5 minutes. Okay, just making sure. I studied them as we walked, trying to decide whether it was my imagination or whether they really were larger. I was getting ready to mention this to Shiara when I heard a cough. I stopped and looked around. Ahem, said a voice. This time I located the speaker. It was the little gold lizard Suze. He was watching me on a branch at about eye level. He was sitting on a branch at just eye level watching me. Oh, hello, Suze, I said. Shiara looked around. I nodded toward the lizard and said, Shiara, this is Suze. You remember I told about him, Suze. This is my friend Liara. Sorry, Liara. Wrong book. Shiara. The lizard ignored the introduction and continued staring at me. Why, he demanded in an aggrieved tone, didn't you tell me Cimarine was your mother? You didn't ask, I said. Suze looked at me reproachfully. It would have saved me a great deal of trouble if you'd mentioned it. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't know it mattered. You didn't? Suze ran down the branch and peered at me. And peered at me. No, you really didn't. How amazing. I can't understand how it happened. What are you talking about? Shiara said. The lizard appeared to her to see her for the first time. He leaned outward in Shiara's direction, and I thought he was going to fall off, till I saw that his tail was wrapped tightly around a sturdy twig on the far side of the branch. You've brought someone with you. Dear me, this will never do. Who is this? I've already introduced you once, I reminded him. You weren't listening. You did? Yes, of course, you did. How perfectly dreadful. Suze ran around the branch very fast, and for a minute I was afraid he was going to try and stand on his tail. If he did, I was sure he'd fall off because the branch wasn't very wide. What's so dreadful? Shiara demanded. There's nothing wrong with me. No, of course there isn't. Oh dear, Kazul will be terribly unhappy about this. Who is Kazul? I asked. Suze looked at me in astonishment. You don't know? No, you don't. I haven't told you yet. Kazul is who you're going to see. He cocked his head to one side as if that explained everything. Why should I want to see Kazul? I asked. And why should he care about me or Shiara or anything? She, Suze said. And of course you want to see her. You have the sword of the Sleeping King, don't you? I'm afraid she'll be dreadfully upset if you bring someone with you, though. Well, I'm not going to leave Shiara alone in the middle of the enchanted forest, I said firmly. No, you couldn't possibly do that, the lizard said. That wouldn't be all right. Dear me, whatever are we going to do? You don't have to worry about me, Shiara said indignantly. I'm a fire witch. I can take care of myself. You are? Suze turned his head and looked at Shiara so intently that his eyes crossed. You really are. How convenient. Everything's quite all right then, Kazul won't mind a fire witch at all. Who, I said, very slowly and carefully, is Kazul? The lizard stared thoughtfully at me for a long time. I don't think I ought to tell you any more, he said. At last, you're quite safe, you really are. But it wouldn't do at all for Kazul to lose her temper with me. Oh dear, no. Quite safe. In the middle of the enchanted forest. With wizards after us, Shiara said sarcastically. You're crazy. I am? No, I'm not at all. How very rude. He turned his back, looking extremely offended. Shiara stared at him. As I said, an offended lizard is an interesting sight. I sighed. Shiara looked down at me. I just stood there. After a minute, she looked down. Well, it is dangerous to be out here, even if you do have that stupid sword, she said defensively. What's wrong with saying so? It wasn't very polite, I said, and you'd promise you'd try. Shiara glanced up at me, then sighed. Oh, all right. I'm sorry, Suze. The lizard twisted his head around. You are? He ran around the branch again and peered at her upside down from underneath the limb. No, you're not at all. How disappointing. I accept. What? Oh my God. He ran back up to the top of the branch. Accept, Shiara said. Your apology, the lizard said with dignity. A dignified lizard looks even odder than an offended one. Oh, Shiara looked at Suze doubtfully. If you won't tell us who Kazul is, will you at least tell us how to find her? I asked hastily. I didn't want Shiara to say anything that would offend Suze again, and she looked like she was going to. Besides, I was curious. You won't have any trouble, the lizard assured. Just head for the castle. Kazul will. He broke off in mid-sentence, staring at the kitten Shiara was holding. What is that? He asked disapprovingly. A kitten, Shiara said. What does it look like? You sure it's under control? Suze seemed a little nervous. I looked at the kitten. It was watching Suze with a great deal of interest. What do you mean, under control? Shiara asked. She's a perfectly well-behaved kitten. Morwen wouldn't have given her to me if she wasn't. Cats are not... Did you say Morwen? Suze peered at Shiara. Yes, I said Morwen. Can't you finish a sentence? Suze ignored her. You've been to see Morwen. I didn't know that. Oh, dear me, I must be dreadfully behind. Why, all sorts of things could be happening that I don't know about. How perfectly dreadful. I must really get back to work at once. Oh, yes, I must indeed. The lizard ran down the branch and disappeared behind the tree. What the fuck? Behind the tree trunk. Wait a minute, I said. I ducked around the back of the tree, but Suze was nowhere in sight. I shook my head and went back to where Shiara was standing. He's gone again, I said, and he still hasn't told me what castle he's talking about. So what? Nobody else has told us anything either. Shiara glanced at the branch where Suze had been sitting. I don't think he's very polite. He didn't even say goodbye. He keeps going off like that, I said. I think that's just how he is. Well, I can't say I'm sorry he left, Shiara said. Come on, let's find that stream Marwan was talking about. I'm thirsty. We started walking again. Shiara put the kitten down, and we took turns keeping an eye on her. She had a marvelous time, jumping on leaves and attacking bushes, while Shiara and I decided what Shiara was going to name her. Finally, she decided on Night Witch. I didn't think it was a very good name, but Shiara liked it, so I didn't say anything. Night Witch is a fantastic name. It also sounds like a black metal band. By the time we found the stream, Shiara and I were tired and hungry as well as thirsty, so we stopped. We each took a drink, and then we sat down and opened the bundles Morwen had given us. Just as I had expected, there were packets of food right on top, meat pies and apples and gingerbread. Shiara and I ate each some, and we gave one of the meat pies to Night Witch. There was little left over, so we wrapped it up and put it back in my bundle before we started down the stream. We stayed as close to the bank as we could. It's easy to get lost in the enchanted forest, especially if you don't really know where you're going. If we got out of sight of the stream, we might never find it again. In a couple places, the trees grew in thick clumps, right up to the water's edge, and we had to choose between waiting and going around. I didn't like the dark look of the forest near the tree clumps, and the water was only ankle deep, so we waited. Night Witch did not approve. The forest got darker as we went along. I was sure now that the trees were bigger, and they were certainly closer together, even when they weren't growing in tight clumps. We spent more and more time in the stream, but the water wasn't very cold, and the pebbles on the bottom were smooth, so it wasn't particularly unpleasant. Even so, I was glad when the woods started to open up again. Then I saw the clearing a little ahead of us. A minute later, I saw the person sitting in it. She was a princess. She had to be. Her hair was long and golden and not tangled at all, and her eyes were very blue, and her skin was very white, and she was very, very beautiful. One dainty foot was peeping out from under her blue silk gown. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she was looking at them with a sad expression. Shiara poked me. I realized that I was standing in a stream with my shoes in one hand and Morwen's bundle in the other, and my mouth hanging open. I swallowed and waded over to the bank. I wanted to put my shoes back on before we got any closer. I had seen at least 2 princesses before that I knew of, but both of them were enchanted and hadn't looked at all like their usual selves when I met them. When I finished with my shoes, the princess was looking in our direction. I stood up hastily and hurried toward her. Shiara followed. As soon as I was within speaking distance, I stopped and bowed. The princess smiled sadly. I bid you poor welcome as I may, she said in a musical voice. Alas, that I can offer you no refreshment, for I am in great distress. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. Is there anything I can do to help? I fear not, said the princess, for you are as yet a youth. Alas, and woe is me, for I am in great distress. All right, just tell us about it, Shiara said. She sat down on the ground and looked at the princess expectantly. I frowned. I didn't think that was proper. That was the proper way to address a princess, though I wasn't positive. Mother had taught me a lot more about dragons than she had about princesses. Oh, I wonder why. You are kind to inquire of my sad tale, the princess said. It is not long to tell. My father was a king, much beloved of his people, and I his only daughter. Being lonely after my mother's death, my father remarried to a woman comely but proud, and under her influence I have suffered these 7 years. And now the king, my father, is dead, and the stepmother has cast me out to wander alone and friendless through the world. Alas, for I am in great distress, we know. You said that before, Shiara said. Why didn't you throw her out when your father died? It would have saved you a lot of trouble. The princess's blue eyes filled with tears, and she bowed her head. 'Twas not within my power to work harm against her, alas. And now I seek some prince or hero who would take pity on my destitute state, and return me to my proper place. Woe is me, that I should be without help in such distress. Sounds like a lousy excuse to me, Shiara muttered under her breath. Fortunately, the princess didn't hear. I'm afraid we can't help you get your kingdom back, I said. I'm very sorry. But if there's any other service I can do for you, I'd be happy to try. Daystar? Shiara's voice was horrified, and suddenly I realized what I'd said. I swallowed. At least I'd only promised to try. There is one thing, the princess said. She raised her head, and her eyes were bright, and I went cold. The princess smiled sweetly. Give me your sword, she said. Oh, no! No! Ah! Damn it. All right, well, I'm going to read the next chapter because I can.